Welcome everybody to our Kabbalah music and prayer class. We are going to be taking a look today at Sim Shalom, which is done in the morning service, in the daytime services, and Shalom Rav in the evening, also Ritzeh, and we're also going to take a look at some text, and we're going to learn a lot about the differences between when we do things, when we don't, and why and how. So the very first thing, you have your packet, and we're starting first with the concept of Kabbalah, peace, and God. So the Kabbalists, the Jewish medieval mystics, were primarily concerned with how the divine presence, that Shekhinah, the divine aspect of God, actually flows into the world. And the model that they constructed concerned three different areas of life, three different avenues through which God could enter our world and enter us. There's the area of physicality, so we have our physical being, our basic needs that we need for survival. There's the emotional realm, and then there's the cognitive, the mental realm as well. For each of these areas, the Kabbalists divided the human qualities in half. And so you want to visualize a seesaw. So everything, it's sort of that yin-yang, but in Judaism, there's always that cause and effect. There's always that balance between, for example, the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer HaTov, the inclination to do, evil or the inclination to do good. So there's always the flip side. So, for example, somebody that is young and they like to light fires, maybe a tendency to be a pyromaniac could then turn into a fireman. So there's always opposite sides of that coin, and it's how we direct our energy and our mind, our physicality, our emotions, and our cognition, how we experience life, how we process, that then shapes and molds us and puts us in a direction that our gifts and our talents could be best used in service of God and of the world. So when you have this seesaw, you think about in the emotional realm, people can act with loving kindness or with judgment. So, when we went through the counting of the Yomer and we looked at all these different attributes, we see that, there are these different sides, dimensions of emotion. So knowing and understanding the difference between loving kindness and judgment, then that gives us an idea of how we relate to others. So, for example, loving kindness is the act of what? Giving, sharing, being magnanimous. It includes giving, but not only just in a positive way, but it can also be the giving of violence or rage, not just compassion. Judgment, on the other hand, that sort of begets a sense of detachment. So when we step back and we sort of let things unfold without, pushing or trying to force things to be one way or another, but we actually detach ourselves from the outcome, allowing things to evolve. But also there's that moment of when we have that judgment against others and how we look at people. And if we are in an extreme state of judgment, then sometimes we distance each other in our own relationships. And we distance ourselves from God because we're not acting in our highest and best good for ourselves or for others. The Kabbalists actually believe that too much of any quality is very dangerous because it causes the world and our lives to get out of balance. So there's like that seesaw effect. We want to be in a state of harmony, in a state of balance. You think of the scales. We want things to be on an even keel. If we act with too much loving kindness, then one side of the seesaw sinks all the way down. And in the world, this is when somebody has absolutely no boundaries. So if you know someone who has no boundaries, sometimes they feel like they're giving and giving and giving and it's never enough, or they feel put upon after a while because things are out of whack. And then when we live with too much judgment, we become distant and removed. So if you know anyone or you have people in your life that are constantly criticizing, judging, ridiculing, passing this running commentary all the time on everything that you say or do, that creates a sense of detachment and distance between you and that individual. So in these cases, the Kabbalists propose the idea of like a middle way, a middle path, like you have in some of the Eastern philosophies, that it's important that these opposing attributes can be in a state of harmonious balance. We want to have balance. So when we think about the prayers that we're going to do, like Sim Shalom and Shalom Rav, the only way we can have peace, peaceful coexistence, peace in our world, peace in our homes, Shalom Bayit, or even peace in our own selves, is when we have things in balance, when we are living in a state of harmony. So when we are out of balance, that's when our society is, full of chaos, as we can see around the world. And what happens is that lack of harmony prevents God's light from infusing the world and elevating us all. And it prevents each and every one of us from being our best, doing our best, sharing our best, and helping the world to evolve to a higher state of being. Not only our world, but each and every one of us. So we want to have everything in a state of balance. And when we do this, then we're going to have the light and the love of God flowing into the world, benefiting all of us. And if we have it out of balance, then we're going to have a lot of evil, we're going to have a lot of negativity, we're going to have a lot of suffering. So the Kabbalistic understanding of the world is that it's not only about God, it's about us, our relationship with our own self, our relationship with others, and the way that we see and view our world and the way that we respond to things, and that time and energy that we invest in our own selves and in our relationships. Are we doing it in a positive way? Are we doing it in a negative way? Or are we doing and feeding our soul and our relationships and our world with the light of God, so that light of God can infuse and elevate more and more and more, and that we can all be further uplifted? And that's when we can have peace of mind, peace in our being, peace in our homes, and peace in our world. So the very first text that we're going to look at, if you'll turn the page in your booklets, we have the actual text of Sim Shalom. And when we do this in our Saturday morning service. Sim is that one time we command God. It is in the command form. Put peace, grant peace upon us all. So if you look, Sim Shalom, if you want to say it with me, Sim Shalom, grant peace. Tova uvracha, tova uvracha. We want to have goodness and blessing. So grant peace, goodness, and blessing. Chen v'chesed, favor and kindness. V'rachamim, compassion. Aleinu, upon all of us. Ve'al kol Yisrael amecha, and upon all Yisrael, upon your people. Barchenu avinu, bless us. Bless us, our Father. Kulanu ke'achad, all of us as one. And we'll get into this later. It looks like it's slanted just for Israel, for the people of Israel. So we will discuss this later. What's happening with everybody else in the world? We're all brothers and sisters sharing this planet. Be'or panecha, say it, be'or panecha, with the light of your countenance. Ki be'or panecha, for by the light of your countenance. Natata lanu, you gave us Hashem, Eloheinu, Torah Chaim, a Torah of life. So we go on with Ve'acha v'chesed, a love of kindness, Utzdecha v'racha v'rachamim, righteousness, blessing, and compassion. Chaim v'shalom, life and peace. V'tov be'enecha levarech, and may it be good in your sight. Et amcha Yisrael, to bless your people Yisrael, once again, the people of Israel. V'chol et v'chol sha'ah, at all times and at every moment. Bishlomecha, with your peace. Baruch atah Adonai ha'mevarech et amo Yisrael, who blesses. Blessed are you, Adonai, who blesses his people Israel, b'shalom, with peace. So when we sing this, we're going to do the shorter version, and then we'll also do the longer one, so that you can have that connection to all of the words that we have there. So you might want to keep that handy for when we get to that song, although you'll have the music. So now if you look to the commentary on Sim Shalom, just a few things about the prayer itself. The text that we just went through actually comes at the end. It's within the Amidah. You know, the prayer that we do standing at the Ark, Adonai, Sefatai Tiftachu Fi Yagid Tehilachecha, it actually has, the Amidah actually is known as the Shemona Esrei. It literally has 18 different blessings within it. And the rabbis of the Talmud said that this is to help people understand the core and essential elements of what actually should constitute prayer. So another name for the Amidah is tefillah. So that's, as we've discussed before, Adonai, Sefatai Tiftachu Fi Yagid Tehilatecha. That's a psalm in praise to God versus tefillah is an actual prayer. So we have in our Mishkan tefillah, our Siddur for Shabbat, it is a Mishkan, a dwelling place of tefillah, of prayer. It actually means judge, to examine oneself. So when we have judgment, that's where we're doing it in a positive light, to examine ourselves like we do at High Holy Days, that cheshbon hanefesh, the accounting of our soul. So on Shabbat, we leave out some of the middle blessings, and we don't usually ask God, we don't make any petitions to God to do anything that would be actual work on Shabbat. And then we replace the single blessing for Shabbat itself. So Sim Shalom is actually a prayer of thanks. So its wording actually looks like a request, but remember, we are doing it in the command form. So unlike the request of prayers, this isn't asking for specific items, but actually a quality that we're asking that God should bring into humanity, that if we do not have peace, then all of us would literally cease to exist. And that's what we're seeing around the world. When we don't have peace, we have war, we have, lots of things that create our world in the sense of unbalance. Marianne, if you like a booklet, you can have a little booklet over here. So the words of Sim Shalom, in a sense, can actually be a feeling of relief. It's like the sun comes out, we're doing it in the daytime, and we're in that state of reconciliation with ourselves, with God, with the world, and everything is bright and in balance. So if you will turn to the second page on that Sim Shalom commentary, and you see it says, what of the word Yisrael? So as I mentioned when we went through the text, why does it seem like we're petitioning, we're requesting, but we're not really supposed to be requesting, but we are giving thanks and we're proposing that there should be peace upon all the world, but we're actually saying in the text, Israel, the people, the nation of Yisrael. And why? Why should it be us? And so when we look at it, it's not just about peace being put upon the Jewish people. It feels, if you just look at the text, like maybe we're not thinking about anybody else. We're just here praying for ourselves alone, and that's not what prayer is about. Prayer is about involving our own self and then putting that sense of clarity and understanding out into the world and elevating each other. But peace isn't actually peace for only one specific group of people. If only one group of people experience it, then it's not peace at all, because then you have all the hostility in the other factions of people. And freedom by itself doesn't mean anything if it's just one group of people that are free and they're free to oppress others. So once again, when you think about that seesaw, there has to be balance and order. So when we think of peace, we want to think of peace for everybody. So one way to look at it, when you look at the word Yisrael, and when you think about it, when we think of the stories in our Torah, it can mean one who wrestles with God. So anyone who wrestles with God, anyone of any nationality, any faith, anybody that has that dialogue that, is involved in that banter of, even why me, or what's going on, or why is it like this in the world, or how can I make it better, or what can I do, to help myself and the ones that I love to make things better. when we do this and we wrestle and we engage in the dialogue and we engage in that interaction with the divine, and we have that yearning, whether it be in prayer or in dialogue, whether you're in the shower or in the car or wherever when you're gardening or whenever you have that moment, surfing or at the beach, whenever you are at that state where you are in communion with your higher sense of self, and you wrestle sometimes with the things that are challenging, that is when that blessing shines down upon all of us. So when you live these qualities and you embody them, then you receive that light from God. And that is for any individual that has a capacity within themselves to have that dialogue, to be engaged in the banter, to ask the hard questions and to search for the answers of what it means to be good and just and true and right. And when we do this, we're holy, and we all have the ability to be holy within ourselves. And, we are created, B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God. So when we have the capacity to be holy, like God, then we help to bring shalom, completion, wholeness, and peace to the whole world, and that sense of oneness, that godliness. So we don't experience existence the same way that God does, but when we yearn and we try to make things whole in our own world, in our own being, that is when we can create a state of tikkun olam. We are healing ourselves, we are doing our work to repair the world, and that's when shalom, that concept of wholeness and peace and beauty and light and love, that becomes a reality for everybody. So now we're going to look at Shalom Rav. So if you'll turn to the next page, which has that beautiful little graphic on it. Let us read the text underneath it. May you grant abundant peace to your people Israel forever. Once again, for you are our sovereign master of all peace. Everyone, may it be pleasing in your sight to bless your people Yisrael at every time and in every moment with your peace. Blessed are you, Adonai. You bless your people Yisrael with peace. So remember, this is a prayer, this is tefillah for peace, but remember what we're doing is we aren't really just doing it for ourselves, as we just said. Anyone that is striving to be holy, anyone that prays for peace in our world, within the boundaries of our own being and within our relationships, is able to create that sense of peace and harmony and unity. So if you look down on the second paragraph, you can see that shalom, we know, is an expression of greeting. It's interesting that it says in Israel, okay, you say shalom, it's peace be unto you, which is similar like when we did with shalom aleichem when we were looking at that. But it's also hello and goodbye. So it's interesting that it said in the early 20th century, people began to say shalom, shalom, for goodbye in order to separate it and distinguish it from shalom for hello. But then some people who have a sense of humor were saying, well, then we never know whether we're coming or going. But that's kind of the human condition. So anyway, if you look at the bottom, we have the root of the word. We have the shin, the lamed, and we have the mem. And what we're doing is we're creating with those letters wholeness, completeness, and harmony. L'shalem is to pay. So in a sense, we're helping to make somebody whole. We're helping to make ourselves whole. And we ask that God create shalom, harmony on high, and bring shalom, peace, and harmony upon us and upon all Yisrael and all the world. And now if you'll turn the page, it says Shalom Rav versus Sim Shalom. So I already told you at the beginning. All right, so which one do we do in the daytime? Sim Shalom. Shalom Rav, an abundant. Rav is great, abundant peace. That is what we do in the evening. So there are two different versions of the prayer. In Ashkenazi rites, that's pretty much what everyone is around here. The two versions are done, one in the morning, and like in the daytime, Sim Shalom, and in the evening, Shalom Rav. So you kind of think about it that the way to remember is whenever you wear your talit, you wear it in the daytime. So you can see those seat and be reminded that God is everywhere. So Sim Shalom is the daytime prayer and Shalom Rav is in the evening. And if you look at the bottom, it says, Sim Shalom may be understood as a congregational paraphrase of the priestly blessing. So that's that Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav alecha v'yichunecha, Yisa Adonai panav alecha v'yasem lecha shalom. So we're asking that God's countenance shine upon us and be with us always and grant us peace. So there again, that seam, that put peace upon us all is so necessary. And so this page 2 kind of corresponds to the text that we went through with your Sim Shalom text, so you have a little more text about it, but it's still breaking it down the way that we had done it earlier. And so now we're going to go through to the last prayer that we're going to look at today is the Ritzeh. Now the Ritzeh is an interesting one. Ritzeh means favor, and if you look at it, this is very interesting. I gave you, if you look at it says Ritzeh prayer, a breakdown of gematria of the numbers, and Ritzeh, when you spell it out with each Hebrew letter, the root of a letter has an equivalent, a numerical equivalent, and when you add it all up, it comes out to 295, and that is the numerical value of Elohim. And so when we think about, we're asking Ritzeh, God to have favor, but we're actually within the actual context of the roots of the letters of the word itself, we are spelling out Elohim. We're giving that honor, that kavod, that blessing to God. And so when we add, the name of Elohim and Ritzeh, and both of them, if you took the letters for Elohim, those also add up to 295. So Ritzeh adds up to 295, Elohim adds up to 295. And when you look at it, it's an interesting thing because Ritzeh has the same root letters as Sarah, which means trouble. And so there's the secret underlining of this verse, that when you have Adonai and you have Elohim, and we have that idea that we have at High Holy Days, that God sits on that throne of judgment and mercy, and it's our deeds and our actions and that merits that shifting from those two states of being, thinking again of that seesaw. So when you have that Elohim and you have Adonai, and you have this mystical sort of swirling connotation of what all of this means when we ask God to have favor upon us, what we realize is that when we look at our life and when we see that there's trouble in the world, and when we have trouble, source, there again, in our own being, that we have the ability within ourselves to rectify it. And we can do this through our prayer, through our giving of tzedakah, through our ability to do loving, kind things in the world and to elevate. When we pray for peace and elevating ourselves and everyone, when we ask God to have favor upon us, we also want to be worthy of that favor. So once again, there's that duality that we have our words and they can be transformed from judgment to beneficence, and we want to be able to know that how we meditate, what our thought patterns are, what the energy is that we bring into the world through our own being, that we manifest our own destiny and we manifest light or negativity in the world. So we can't have prayers for peace, or we can't ask God for favor if we're not acting in a way that truly merits it. So the idea is that Torah in the world was created with the intention that we were co-partners with the divine, and in order to do that with that sense of being that we were created in the image of God, and we are partners with God in this world. And if we're going to ask for peace, and if we're going to, request or give thanks, or, really be in a situation where we're like, please have favor upon us, we have to be worthy. And then we have to take that light and that love and the goodness that we have manifested in the abundance that we receive and not hoard it. We can't just keep it all to ourselves. We have to be willing to open ourselves up and share it with others so that it's like a domino and it just manifests and then expands from there. And so if you look at the last page before we start our singing, we have, this is drawing near, an interpretive ritzeh. And so we'll read together that originally it says that traditionally the prayer was for a restoration of the second temple. Why does everybody want to have, now some people want a third temple. Why? So the animal sacrifice and some of the things that we can't do anymore can be done again. In the contemporary sense, though, we are asking God to accept the offerings of our hearts and the prayers that we are giving with a complete open being, and then to use those to draw us near, to draw us closer into that divine partnership so that we can be close to that oneness, the oneness of God and the oneness of our own being, and have that connection, that spiritual divine connection that we all crave so much, so that we can feel that sense of shalom, completion, wholeness, and peace. So together, let's read this final text, and then we'll do the singing. So together, Hamakom, our prayers are the offering, and you are the temple. Our words rise to the sky like smoke from a flame, swirling above what is burnt, what is broken. Holy One of blessing, please accept them all. The words and wonder, the fear and awe. Life is light and wax and burning. Every offering we bring before you is a way to draw near, a promise of our love. Baruch atah Adonai, mechavel ha'olot. Blessed are you, Holy One, who accepts our offerings. And if you look at what it says there, our words rise to the sky like smoke from a flame, swirling above what is burnt, what is broken. And when we think of the images around the world, especially right now in the Ukraine, and we see the devastation and the loss and the lives lost and the property that's so completely destroyed and truly burnt and broken, we ask that God, the Holy One of blessing, accept our prayers for peace, peace for ourselves and peace for all the world, as together we say, Amen. And so now we are going to sing some music. So we will start with the Sim Shalom. So you have the first one, that is the folk melody, and this is the one that we just do with exuberance and joy. And excitement, and this is the shorter version, and then we're going to do the longer one that has the whole text that we read at the beginning of our class together this evening. So, Sim Shalom. Okay. Sim Shalom. Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova, uveracha. One more time. Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova, uveracha. Hey, la 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 la. La 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 la, ya la la, ya la la, ya la 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 la. Sing, 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 shalom, sing, 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 shalom, sing, 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 shalom, tova v'racha. So we manifested some good energy there. And now we will move on to the longer version of Sim Shalom that has all of the words in it that we did earlier in the class of the complete text, the Barkin Sim Shalom. Sim, 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 shalom, sim shalom tova v'racha, sim, shalom tova v'racha. One more time, sim, shalom tova v'racha, sim, shalom tova v'racha. Chen v'chesed ben rachamim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amecha. Baruchenu Avinu kulanu ke'echad be'or panecha. Hey la la la, sim shalom tova v'racha, sim shalom tova v'racha. Ki va'or panecha natata lanu Adonai Eloheinu Torah hechim ve'ahava chesed u'tzedakah v'rachamim v'chayim v'shalom. Hey la la la, sim shalom tova v'racha, la la la, sim shalom tova v'racha. Woo! Sim shalom, put peace upon us all. So now we're going to do the Shalom Rav, the Klepper Freelander version that most are familiar with. We're going to do this one first, and then we'll do the one that we tend to do at High Holy Days. So first, Jeff Klepper, Dan Freelander. May we have a Shalom Rav, an abundant peace. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim le'olam. Shalom, ki ata hu melech hador, lecho hashalom. Shalom Rav, Yisrael amcha, tasir le'olam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael amcha, tasir le'olam. V'tov b'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael, v'chol hil v'husha b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav, Yisrael amcha, tasir le'olam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael amcha, tasir le'olam. Tasir le'olam. Tasir le'olam. And that started in the camp movements, the youth camps, and then it moved into our liturgy and our evening services. If you have your book open, let's read together underneath the text. Grant abundant peace to Israel, your people forever. For you are the sovereign God of all peace. May it be pleasing to you to bless your people Yisrael in every season and every moment with your peace. So remember, it's not just Israel. We are all brothers and sisters sharing this planet, and anyone who wants to work towards a greater society, a better, more elevated humanity, better relationships between people, one who wrestles with God and wrestles with what's right and wrong, that's a peace, an abundant peace, a Shalom Rav that should come to all. So, Finkelstein. Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata umelech adon lecha shalom. Ki ata umelech Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tov v'lecha levarech et amcha Yisrael v'chol eish v'chol shah v'shlomecha. Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. May it be our prayer on this night that we have a Shalom Rav, an abundant peace. And so now we are going to look at that Ritzeh prayer. If you'll turn to page, you can go to 330 in your book, if you have your book. And those of you who have the text there in the booklet. And so first we're going to do a cappella version that we do on Shabbat morning, and then once again we'll do the one that we do at High Holy Days, the Stephen Richards version. So first the a cappella. And let us read underneath on page 330, if you have your book out, page 330. On this Shabbat day, as you graciously receive our prayers, help us to hear your call. Grant us enough health to fulfill our duties and the compassion we need to attend to others. Teach us humility that we may perceive our own faults, and grant us the wisdom to be forgiving of others. Give us the courage to be true to our highest selves, and the charity to see the best in those around us. Give us patience enough not to become discouraged, hope enough to overcome all fears for the future, and faith enough to know your presence. O source of blessing, look with favor upon us. May our offerings be acceptable to you. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu ve'amcha Yisrael. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu ve'amcha Yisrael. Tefilatam ve'ahavat kabel. Tefilatam ve'ahavat kabel. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu ve'amcha Yisrael. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu ve'amcha Yisrael. And now we will do the Stephen Richards version, the large version that we do at High Holy Days. And then this will conclude our class for this evening. And we're so grateful to our musicians, Dan and Marianne and Stacy, and to those of you that have shown up for the class, those of you that are watching on the live stream, we're so very grateful to all of you. And hopefully we're manifesting some positive light and energy, generating some shalom, some peace for the world. Ritzei. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu ve'amcha Yisrael. Tefilatam ve'ahavat tekabel. Tehi l'ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael Amecha. Karov pnei lavadecha v'neinu shefu May you have peace in your heart, peace in your home, and may the love that we share and the peace that we pray for be abundant for all the world. Thank you.